Hey, what's up and how's it going, all MRBers? I am Mike McRock for the McRock and Bolt Wrestling Review Show, and right now I'm going to give you my review as well as the results of this week's episode of TNA Impact Wrestling. If there was one thing I really did like about this episode of TNA is that they really done a lot of wrestling and less talking. And I'm an old school guy, and when it comes down to it, I would rather see an episode of WWE or an episode of TNA where they have a lot more wrestling than they do talking, because ultimately at the end of the day, it's a wrestling show. It has to feel like a wrestling show, and for a show to feel like a wrestling show, it has to have a lot of wrestling, and I think that's the one thing this episode accomplished. Even though it was a so-so kind of episode, that was the one thing that I took away from this, is that they delivered more in-ring action than they did in-ring promo work. And the show started off with Bully Ray and Willow versus Bobby Roode and Ethan Carter III in a tables match. Now, the only nitpicky issue I had with this match was that, usually when you have a tag team tables match, you would expect both guys from one team to have to go through two separate tables individually. Instead, with this stipulation, they only just had one guy. It kind of made sense to where this match was going, and I thought this was a really good, solid way to kick off TNA. This was probably the match of the night, in my opinion, and I think the best parts of this match where you had Rockstar Spud coming out in the wheelchair, selling his injuries based on what happened last week when he was hunting down Willow with Ethan Carter. That was tremendous. And you had Rockstar Spud coming out in a wheelchair with that funny-looking clown-like wardrobe, whatever it was. And that was the most hilarious part of Rockstar Spud. And I cannot express enough how funny this guy is. He's just a breath of fresh air when it comes to, the whole comedy relief. It's really great to see someone like that, who's very charismatic in his own way, to come out and sell the whole scenario like gold. And that's what he done here when Jeff Hardy the drop kicked him while he's still on the wheelchair, and he goes back into the guardrail. That part was hilarious. And then Jeff Hardy escorts him out from the ramp. So it's left with Bobby Roode, Ethan Carter, and Bully Ray. And Bully Ray was gaining the momentum, taking out the heels in this match until the numbers gained up on him. And you had Bobby Roode apply the Roode lock to Bully Ray and put him through a table. And that wasn't enough. Bobby Roode wanted to put him through another table. That wasn't enough. Bobby Roode wanted to put him in through a third table. And I like that Bobby Roode was doing these things to gain heat. And that's the ultimate thing that Bobby Roode and Ethan Carter III really done here, and they established it really well, is for the heels to gain the heat, to gain the momentum. Now, you can make the argument that, fresh out of, the new babyface turn, which I'm starting to get on board with, because you need a fresh Bully Ray instead of the same old heel persona. So sometimes you have to change it up. And that's one thing TNA done, I think, that was smart on the part of Bully Ray's character, is to, turn him babyface to make him more interesting. And that's what they done here. And I like that the heels went strong coming out of this really good, solid opener. And it's amazing how TNA on this show goes from a really good, solid, in-ring good performance in their opening match to a really terrible, bad match. And it was Mr. Anderson versus Samuel Shaw in a straitjacket match. Now, you would think that even though this stipulation worked with Samuel Shaw's character, his demeanor and stuff like that, it would make sense to make this stipulation a straitjacket because of Samuel Shaw's persona as the creepy bastard. So it makes sense for those two to have a stipulation match that involved a straitjacket. Alright, okay, they're probably going to do something interesting here. No, they didn't. What happened was Anderson he cut a promo and said that said he's going to make sure that Samuel Shaw never touches anyone anymore. Samuel Shaw comes out, he cuts a promo, says that he creates art with his hands, and he goes on to say that Mr. Anderson is an ordinary person and that the worst crime is to be ordinary. Kind of makes sense in a way. I don't know, it was just the way that he was telling it, and that Christy loves me. I think they missed an opportunity from this match to have Christy come out and have her turn heel and go along with Samuel Shaw. That's something that they could have done to save this match. Not necessarily save the match, but to have that unexpected moment. Even though I think the right person went over here, you could have had that extra something to make the fans go, whoa, what just happened here? So, yeah, I think they kind of missed out on a really good opportunity to put Christy Hemme involved and have her run with Samuel Shaw as a really evil, creepy couple, like a Bonnie and Clyde or whatever you want to say. So, what happened was that, like I said, these two went at it. And it was just a bad match all over. It was a good stipulation, but it was just bad. There was no chemistry at all. I mean, after watching this match, I don't think they should even touch each other anymore, even though you could say that, well, okay, this is a weak way to end the feud. I mean, you might as well, because Mr. Anderson shouldn't be jobbing out to someone who should be getting over in a really good, gimmick. He shouldn't. I think, in my opinion, is that Anderson needs a different type of push. He could be, involved in the World Heavyweight Championship, and I could believe it. So I think they should, after this match, these two should really separate from each other and just don't ever touch each other again. And with that being said, I think ultimately the one smart thing that they're done with this match is have the right person win over. You have Samuel Shaw go over, and he done some great psychology things after the match as well, which was all well and good. So that ultimately, at the end of the day, even though this was a really bad, terrible in-ring work performance between these two guys, in my opinion, the way they done this match, you had Samuel Shaw go over, and that was the main thing to do. And then we get to a match that was supposed to happen, but was interrupted by someone. It was Tigre Uno versus Sonata. It was for a Best of the 3 X Division title. And then, like I said, the match was about to happen until Kenny King comes out. If there's one thing I like about this, is that I am glad that he's back. And he comes out and he's pretty much hogging the spotlight, telling everyone that I'm back, etc., etc. And it was to the point where MVP was forced to come out and tell Kenny King that we'll settle this in the back. And Kenny King was like, no, hang on. I want to settle this now. I want to be booked in the match. And I like the way that they're telling the story, even though you can argue that MVP shouldn't be someone who's an active wrestler and a boss in the same time. He should do one thing only. But the more I think about it, the more I think it's not about MVP. It's more about Kenny King and about his story coming up, making his return on TNA, and realize that he's not being booked in a match. And I like what they're doing here with Kenny King. So what happened was that you had all this happen, and then you get to the match that happened later on. and it was Kenny King challenging MVP to an exhibition match. Now, I'm not really sure what the actual rules are, so but the way I was watching this match, I kind of got the understanding of what an exhibition match looks like. I think, to me, I'm the guy that's playing dumb here. I don't know what an exhibition match here is. And the way TNA portrayed this exhibition match actually made me think, okay, this is a really good exhibition match. Okay, this is what it looks like. And they've done a really good job of telling me the definition of an exhibition match while I was watching this match. And it was really good. Now, I was reading some of the YouTube comments to say that this match was slow. I really didn't see that. What I saw was a really good technical wrestling match between MVP and Kenny King. And at the end, you had the match being thrown up because these guys were turning into a fight. They were telling a really good story here. And at the end, you had, these guys separate them. And I like to see where this goes between these two guys, even though, like I said, I don't like the idea of MVP being a wrestler because he's an authority figure. I can take an exception with this because, this is more about Kenny King coming up to TNA and trying to work up the ranks as a superstar and to establish himself as a superstar than MVP. So I think they really accomplished something here in putting Kenny King not only back on television where he belongs on TNA, but already being put in the story as well. TNA is doing something really good here with Kenny King, and that's the main thing that they're doing. They've done it with Samuel Shaw, even though it was a terrible match, but they also done it with Kenny King, which was a good match. So it's a real hit and miss kind of episode when you really think about it. And also on the show, going back to the Tigre Uno and Sonata match, you had those two go at it, and it's a best out of 3 X Division match we're going to see. 3 matches with these two guys, and it's interesting that these two were partners and now they're opponents. And I like when you have 2 guys that are both baby faces and the audience is pretty much invested with these 2 guys already. They're X Division superstars, one's the champ, and it's just all well and good. And the one thing I actually did enjoy about this match is that it's the first out of 2 more matches that they're going to have. And I like how they're slowly building it up because this wasn't really a 5-star classic type of X Division match. This was more like a 3-star match, maybe around there, because it was, there were moments where I thought, the sell jobs could have been a lot better, and that there were moments where it just felt like an okay match overall. Let's just put it that way. And I like it was just an okay match because you don't want to have that 5-star classic already, and then you're building it up there, and the match has to be better than the first match. So I think TNA is doing something smart. Instead of having that full-blown 15-minute match. They had the 6 or 7-minute match between these 2 guys to help build this 2 out of these this best of 3 matches. Next week, we'll probably see Tigre Uno go over Sonata, and it was ironic how this match ended. You had Sonata apply the Tiger Suplex to Tigre Uno. The little things matter in TNA, and that's all I have to say about that. And then we get to a tag team knockouts match. It was the Beautiful People versus Madison Rayne and Brittany. One thing I will say before I get into this match is that I love the new Beautiful People's entrance. The whole thing with the curtain and all you see is the shadows of them moving around. Really sexy, and the curtain just drops down and there they are. And then I was like, what the heck are they wearing? Oh man, their wardrobe was very questionable, to say the least. Anyway, moving on. Okay, so this match happened. I thought this match was actually not half bad. What happened was that you had the beautiful people go over Madison Rayne and Brittany. What happened was that Brittany blind tagged Madison Rayne, and then the beautiful people double teamed Brittany and pinned her for the win. Now you can argue that, oh crap, they just ruined the momentum of a new knockout, but the more I think about it, the more I go back to the blind tag when Brittany blind tagged Madison Rayne to get involved into the match itself, and then just got squashed by the beautiful people. You know, you can make the argument now there's going to be something happening between Madison Rayne and Brittany because of that little blind tag, and Madison was like, what? Why? You know, it was one of those moments where, you know, you're poking the seed of establishing a possible feud between the champion and the new knockout. The only little issue I have with it is that they shouldn't rush the new knockout becoming a contender for the championship. You know, put her in more singles competitions first until she gets that shot at the championship, and that'll be all right with me. So I hope the one thing that they do here is, you know, planting more small seeds of doubt between Madison and Brittany, the new knockout, and you can have the beautiful people poke at both of them as well, you know, trying to turn on each other as well, because, you know, there's the whole storyline of Brittany looking up to Madison, and now with this with the way this match ended, you can now play on that. You can have the beautiful people in that supporting role as the new dominant heel tag team, and just poking at both the people here, or you can just poke at Brittany, just poke at her into turning on Madison Rayne. Just have her be manipulated back and forth until she finally cracks and probably turns on Madison. It's going to happen eventually, so I'm predicting something like that. That's going to happen. Speaking of predictability, one thing I'm really not really invested in is the whole Magnus and Abyss thing, and I'll explain why. You have Magnus come out, and he says he has something to show the fans, what he done to Abyss here, and Abyss comes out with the suit on and with the mask on, and you know, it's kind of like their version of Corporate Kane in a way. So, well, what he got here was Magnus coming out and talking to Abyss how we should discuss the strategy of this main event, this four-way dance between him, Abyss, Eric Young, and Samoa Joe. And then he goes on to say that I'm not the guy who's going to use you, Abyss. I'm the guy that's going to treat you like I'm your best friend. I love you. You know, that weird, awkward moment, which felt kind of intriguing in a way. And then you had Abyss, you know, pretty much what this was Magnus telling Abyss that I'm not going to treat you like crap like James Mitchell. I'm going to treat you like the way you should be treated, as a best friend and stuff like that. And what happened was that you got Samoa Joe and Eric Young coming out, and they were, you know, going back and forth with Abyss and Magnus. You know, they're teasing the four-way match, and you have Eric Young and Samoa Joe facing off. They're teasing the four-way match, and I like the way they're going here with this fatal four-way match, because yeah, you know, you're establishing different stories. Even though I'm not crazy about the whole cliched Abyss turning on, the possibility of Abyss turning on Magnus, you know, you have elements of Samoa Joe and Eric Young, Abyss, Samoa Joe, and Magnus. So there's more than one story going on with this four-way match, which I actually don't mind because I would rather see that than a one story affair with two guys being the filler. So at least TNA's doing something interesting enough to make me invested into the match. But ultimately, at the end, this match was not really the greatest championship match on TNA, and that was the main event, the Fatal 4-Way match between Samoa Joe, Eric Young, Abyss, and Magnus for the World Heavyweight Championship. Now, you can make the argument, of course, Magnus is doing everything he can to make sure that he does not lose the champion. And the one thing he does is that he tells Abyss to not pin Eric Young when he gave him the Black Hole Slam. And so what he done was he went up the top rope, dropped the elbow, and pinned him 1, 2, 3 while Abyss was just standing there and should have just gained the pin on Eric Young and put him 1, 2, 3 and become the world champion. That's what should have happened. And the other thing that should have happened is that they should have gave this match to an Eric Young. I think he should have deserved this match. Eric Young deserved to win this match. Even Samoa Joe, he deserved to win this match. And it just baffles my mind that TNA is going the predictability route of having Magnus retain. Good God, this match, the way they ended it was just horrible. It was bad. It was predictable as crap. Ugh. There was so much missed opportunities that they could have done. It was just bad. And if that wasn't bad enough, before the show went off the air, you get this hashtag, whatever it was, Dixie is coming back and she's going to come back and she's going to pick a bone with someone. Wasn't the whole point of MVP winning the Lethal Lockdown match for Dixie Carter to go away from TNA? All that for what? Ridiculous. And I don't know, overall with this episode of TNA, it wasn't really the best episode. And I'm just being fair here. It wasn't really the best episode. There were some good things that TNA done here, but ultimately at the end, it just wasn't enough to save this show overall. And if I were to give this a rating out of 10, probably a 4.5 or even a 5, and I'm just being fair enough. And if you saw this episode of TNA, what did you think? Whatever you thought, comment below, let me know. While you're at it, you can hit that subscribe button down below this video. You can follow MRB Wrestling on Twitter, and you can like us on Facebook at the Make Rock and Bolt Wrestling Review Show. And on a final note to all you viewers watching, get plenty of rest and always do your best.